Amazing, amazing. Wagwan, everybody. Thank you again for coming on the stream. My name is Jermaine L. Murray, but you also know me as the Jobfather, career coach, recruiter, and somebody is trying to get as many Black people as possible jobs in tech. And I'm joined here by a dear friend of mine, a legendary visionary, especially when it comes to the e-learning platform. Y'all have been seeing me hype up and talk about this institution, Skillhat. But I promise you by the end of this conversation, you'll be just as hyped about it as I am. But Mo, please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are.
What's going on, everyone? Jermaine, thank you so much for having me. Everyone watching, big up yourself. Thank you for joining today. I want to help you learn the tips and tricks to land multiple six-figure tech roles, seven-figure tech roles in about the next few minutes. My name is Mo, founder and CEO here at Skillhat. I've been in tech for about maybe over 12 years now. And I started off in project management, did some work in business analysis, user experience design, product management. I've pretty much done it all. I did some sales as well. And through that process, I learned a lot of skills, and I realized that these are skills that not a lot of people have, but are in demand. So I started Skillhat to help people of color, women, Black professionals, double, triple, quadruple their income. And so today I want to talk about the crazy results we've seen. In the last 3 years alone, we've helped over 200 people land six-figure jobs. We've helped create over $20 million for our community. And I have some tips and tricks to share if you want to do the same.
I love that. I love that. Mo, it sounds like you and I got some very similar approaches, or even want to say like values when it comes to empowering folks through like employment. I always talk about like the first time I helped somebody get a six-figure job, especially someone that was Black. Everything they told me about how it's going to like change their lives is kind of like gave me like an extra juice, some extra batteries to like do what we do. So I know that you kind of gave us a brief overview of like your history and where you're from. But I am curious, right? What was there a specific experience or a specific moment that eventually led to you starting or wanting to start Skillhat? And like, how much did your background kind of shape what that vision would look like for the platform?
I think I always wanted to start a business in some capacity, first of all. So let me start there really, really quickly. I think everyone should have a business. You want to have a great full-time job at the start, but you want to have something that makes money for you in a way that you don't have to be there all the time. So first of all, I wanted to start a business, and I was working in tech. And so I think the moment that made me realize there was a huge opportunity was when I became a vice president in a billion-dollar company at about 27 years old. And I was downtown Toronto. I take the train from Saga to work. Not that many Black folks, downtown working in tech. I got the office. I'm in the highest floor, board meetings, running projects. Not a lot of Black professionals or women in tech. And I saw the stats. The Black community holds only about 3 to 7% of tech jobs in the U.S. and Canada. So that might seem fine to you, but the point is, though, the technology industry has the highest income you can find in any industry, right? Top 5 companies in the world, tech companies. And so I looked at the numbers. I said, the Black community also has the highest rate of poverty and the lowest income band. So why is it that the community with the lowest income has the lowest representation in the area with the highest amount of income you can make? The math didn't make sense to me. The math wasn't mathing. So I said, we're going to try to solve this problem. So I joined a boot camp to actually teach project management. And I was doing this on the side for 4 years. And in those 4 years, I was actually working my job and training people in the evening. So I'll be having lunch at work, taking sales calls for the boot camp for folks who are like, hey, Mo, I want to get in the program. I want to double my income and change my life. I'm like, bet, I got you. And in the evenings, I'll be teaching the class. So it was actually a part-time side hustle, and it was a great side hustle. Even doing it on the side, I was coaching people and they were changing their lives. And when I got to a point that I was losing money from my job because I had like so many people calling me all the time, I actually couldn't get the work done. And I looked at my CRM, I started running ads. I saw we had 1,000+ people saying, I want to get in. I'm like, okay, this doesn't make any sense anymore. I'm going to quit my job and focus on doing this full time. So Short answer, it wasn't. It was looking at the data first of all. Second of all, doing it on the side, part time, and seeing the impact. And then third, seeing that it became bigger than my actual job. I just jumped in, quit my job, and the rest is history.
Shout outs to you. That's that. I feel like I know the exact same report you're talking about. Toronto Metro University, because you gotta say TMU now, formerly known as Ryerson University, put out a report called "Who Are Tech's Job Workers," and it was a breakdown, at least for the Canadian market, on what the representation looked like for different ethnic groups in tech, and also their salary. And like, I'll never forget this. This was the moment that things kind of like made me go, oh no, this can't go on. It said that the average salary for a tech worker was $70,000 for a non-white tech worker, and the average salary for a white tech worker was $71,000. I'm here thinking that's amazing. That means that, tech is this great equalizer, at least from like a race standpoint. And then when they broke it down even more by ethnic groups, I saw that Black people were represented at the time with 3.9% of the workforce. And our average salary in tech was $65,000, right? And, I'm not a math major. I went to school for English. That's what I always tell people. So like at first I was like, oh, you know what? This makes sense. Lower representation, that's why the number is a bit lower, right? Maybe that's how it works. And then I went down to another ethnic group, the Japanese ethnic group, and they represented 0.8% of the workforce. Their average salary was $85,000, and that clicked in my head because, oh wait, no, Jermaine, you're not being math literate right now. The smaller the percentage of the group, the higher the salary should be, right? And right there is that disconnect, and that disconnect comes from they call it they call it the burden of low expectations, where people take social stereotypes and they project them onto you. So these are things that people of different ethnic groups, Black folks being one of them, kind of have to overcome when we're trying to like get into certain industries or markets. And that's why you always got to advocate and negotiate your salary. So question for you, Mo, like we are in like a very ever-changing industry and market right now. Like it's the wild west, and I know what I'm saying. I know it's the wild west right now, but so we have a lot of we have a rapid rise in just a lot of tech that's being adopted across industries. And like when you take a step back, especially somebody that's preparing people to go into this market and this workforce, what trends are you seeing in the market right now? And like when it comes to PMs, have you seen that demand for PMs and even for like tech workers in general? Have you seen it waver? Do you see it going down, especially with like all the layoffs? Do you ever see it rebounding?
Yeah, well, there's a few trends to talk about. One is, of course, we're seeing a few layoffs for a number of reasons, but it's a temporary situation, and the market will always bounce back. There's some layoff happening. That's one trend. The other trend I'm seeing is just the rise of AI-related work, and cybersecurity, specifically those two. So artificial intelligence and cybersecurity roles are so high in demand. If you look at cybersecurity right now, for every one cyber professional, there's 4 jobs out there for you. So companies are really looking to protect their data, because after COVID, we became so reliant on technology, and every company has a technology strategy, and being able to protect it is so key for businesses, right? Think about a bank. If your bank gets hacked and money moves around, or the government data gets hacked, or health data gets hacked, they're in trouble, right? So security is a big one. Privacy, right? We're seeing a lot of clampdowns with Congress. I don't know if you saw the video with them calling Zuckerberg and the Tesla CEO and all the tech CEOs, the Congress, to answer for privacy concerns, and the companies are tightening up their privacy processes. Those are creating jobs, actually. So with the rise of AI, cyber, there's a lot more jobs in that space. And so those are some trends I could talk about. Now, with regards to the roles that are high in demand, I put together a list, right? So there's a list of roles that if you are not technical and want to earn a high income and position yourself for the future, for the next 10, 20 years, these are roles that you should consider, because they have a higher than average projected growth rate, right? everyone kind of knows that, for example, nurses have like nurses are in demand, right? Like if you're a nurse, there's 1,000 jobs for one nurse. The growth rate of nurses, just to compare, is 35%, right? So one of the highest like need roles in US and Canada, 35%. Cybersecurity analyst is also 35% as far as your growth rate. So you're at that level where if you work in cyber as an analyst or a penetration tester, you're at like the growth, the demand is more than the supply. That's one. That's the highest growth rate that we're seeing in tech right now, cybersecurity analyst. The second one is any role in the AI space. So data scientist, machine learning engineer, that's also at 35%. The third is a software developer or no code developer, right? That's at between 20 and 30% growth rate. So I could break that down. A lot of folks know that if you're a software developer, software engineer, there's jobs for you. But did you know that you can actually become a software developer who does not code, right? You can actually build apps and websites without knowing how to code. And that's called a no-code developer. There's tools out there that let you build very complex apps. And I'm not just talking about websites that are static. I'm talking about fully functional apps. An app like a LinkedIn that we're on right now, an app like an Uber, like Airbnb, that allows you to do complex things like making a booking, canceling a booking, etc. You can build apps like that without writing any code. One of the tools that you can use for that is called Bubble, Flutter. There's all these no-code tools. And in about 6 months, you can learn and be proficient in no-code and have a side hustle. You can have your own agency. You can have jobs doing that. And that's at between 20 and 30%. That's the third. The fourth is the business analyst role. So as the BA, and we'll talk a bit more about that, the growth rate is 15% for the BA role. Third is project manager, which is about 11 to 14% projected growth rate. Then we have customer success manager and then tech sales. So I'll go through that list again, right? Cybersecurity at number one, an AI specialist, so machine learning data scientist, no-code developer, software developer, business analyst, project manager, customer success manager, and tech sales. These are roles that if you want to bet and invest in a career that's future-proof, getting into any one of these, you can get into. And the least technical, the ones that you can get in, if you have a background that's not that technical and you're saying, how do I take advantage of the tech boom and earn a lot of money? I'd say tech sales, customer success management, project management, business analyst, no-code developer. Those roles you can get into and be proficient in, as little as 9 weeks. You're not going to believe it. We've trained people in BA skills in 9 weeks, and they get a job after and they double their income just for 9 weeks of training, right? Now, cybersecurity is huge. There's technical cybersecurity roles, and there's non-technical cybersecurity roles, right? So if you look at roles like GRC, governance, risk, and compliance, being able to analyze a company's infrastructure and say, are you complying with policy? Are you complying with GDPR? There's roles like that that are not that technical and command a heavy wage and are in demand.
So I wanted, and I rate a lot of those roles too, and I think we had like a lot of success stories with them as well. Whenever I'm talking to people that are considering, walking down the tech path, there are a lot of conversations right now about the AI boogeyman. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'll have people ask me like, yo, is it even worth getting a job in tech? If like AI is around the corner about to take everybody's job. And I noticed as well, specifically when I'm talking to like developer friends, they be like, the developers are going to be the last one the AI comes for. AI is going to go after all of the non-technical roles, your BAs, your recruitment, your project managers, product managers. And I even imagine at some cases there might be worried about anyone pursuing even like a no-code developer role because of the AI. I have my opinion, but I gotta know yours. When it comes to like the AI boogeyman and how precarious or dangerous or how in danger some of these roles would be, what would you say to somebody like that has that fear popping up?
Yeah, there's a very popular saying now in tech, which is that AI will not take your job, but instead somebody who's using AI is who will take your job, right? So as a founder, as a business owner myself, I'm always looking at ways to become more efficient. And that's really what AI is. So breaking that down is just really being able to have a computer do work that typically requires a deep level of intelligence for you, right? For example, recently we're looking at resumes. We have a marketing role open that we're hiring for, and we got 200 applications in the first 24 hours, right? Now, typically in the past, I had my team look at every single one and review. That could take days. That could take hours. What we do is we have artificial intelligence, ATS systems that look at the job description, look at the resumes, and give us the best candidates. Saves hours of work in a few minutes, probably in a few seconds, right? And so every business wants to do that. And so what I say is the opportunity is to figure out, one, how can you actually use AI in your job, in whatever you're doing, whether it's sales, whether it's broadcasting, whether it's script writing, whatever it is you're doing, you can leverage AI to make that so much faster and so much better, right? Recently, I went to Collision, right? This huge tech conference. And they were talking about how doctors will typically get a prescription wrong they get it right. They get it right only about 40% of the time, the first time. 40%, that's crazy. Now, AI will get that diagnosis right 50% of the time. But when you combine a doctor using AI to do a diagnosis, it gets it right 60% of the time. And so it shows even at the highest level of intelligence, which is doctors and medical professionals, they go through years and years, they're still better off leveraging technology and AI. So my first response to a person like that is, first, actually think about how will you leverage AI in your job, in your actual job. The second thing is actually helping to implement AI, right? Now, every single company will want to implement some sort of technology and AI in your business process, right? So one, whatever you're doing your day-to-day, use AI for that. But also two, how does the company become better as a whole by implementing AI in your business process? So if you think in that way, you'd probably be better off in terms of your skill set and your ability to drive value in the company, right? Does that make sense?
It does. Let me just ask you to clarify something too. You are essentially like you said use AI, and I kind of want to just be clear on here. You're saying use AI to improve your critical thinking. Don't become over reliant on AI, because everything that you just said all originates with somebody that has the critical thinking skills to understand the proper time and place, and even how much of AI to use something. Because I know if someone uses AI for copywriting, it sounds robotic. It sounds plain. It sounds, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to think of it sounds like somebody seasoned fish with potatoes, right? I was in England and people actually call potatoes a seasoning for fish. That was news to me. But not to hate on my English folks, but I think that's the other thing too. A lot of people assume that, and I know Silicon Valley's working towards quote unquote API, but like everything that you said still requires somebody to have a certain level of aptitude and skill with their job in order to know what to accept, what not to accept, or even how to push the systems to get the result that you want.
Absolutely.
Okay. Appreciate that, because someone's gonna be like, "Oh, I could do most job with AI." No, you can't. I promise you can't.
I tried that before. It's not gonna work. Like I've tried using AI to write content, write scripts. It doesn't resonate as much with the audience versus when you tell a personal story, for example, right? Or if you're using AI for ads, like I've seen people run ads and it's just like some AI robot talking, and you can tell it's not real. It doesn't resonate as much, but you can still use AI. But when you combine two different AI tools together, for example, or you combine it with a personal story or the right imagery, you can do a lot. But the human touch is never going to go away, right? Yeah. And that's just to add to one last thing, which is you always want to have a strong blend. What we're seeing is that the biggest skills of the future are really like empathy, leadership, and just being human, right? Because the technology and computers doing all the hard work of coding and doing the raw design, really your job is to understand the human needs. What is it that the actual customer wants, right? Who's the customer? Where do we play? What's our competitive space, right? The human nature of the work is what will not go away.
Love it. So with the landscape ever changing and evolving and new technologies breaking how we do things, do you think a traditional education is keeping up with the demands of the tech industry or the world as a whole? Or are we seeing more people turn to alternative methods like Skillhat?
That's a great question. So when you say traditional education, you mean a university program?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it's a good question, man. And a lot of people poo on universities and say it's not valuable. Let's take it back to what the purpose of university is, right? It's supposed to help a young person who may be 18 years old, 17 years old, go through a system in their early ages where they lack discipline or don't have that network to build discipline, build character, build a network, and learn how to think critically, right? The problem became a bigger problem when universities started getting into charging massive amounts of money, where you're coming out of school in the U.S. with a degree and you're coming out with $200,000 in debt, right? Now, how long would it take to pay off that debt? And then the second problem became when technology evolved so fast that university programs are not staying at par. So now you start a program, things are going to be great. You come out in 5 years, you can't get a job with that program, and you're in debt. So that was the root cause of the problem. Now, boot camps like Skillhat came in, and I think the third problem is this, right? A lot of universities, you go into school to study a Bachelor of Arts in whatever, or a Bachelor of Science in whatever, and you take a ton of courses over a 4-year period, right? When I went to school, I took stuff that I don't even use today. I did psychology. I was looking at lab rats. I did like a bunch of stuff. Whereas boot camps actually work backwards and say, at Skillhat, for example, we say, okay, you want to be a project manager, you want to be a no-code developer, you want to be a business analyst. It's not going to take you 4 years. It's going to take you 6 months. And we're going to work backwards from what does the industry need now? What will it be in about a year from now or two? And then we teach the exact thing that you need to get the exact job that you want. Whereas university, you're learning a whole bunch of stuff for a whole bunch of different roles, right? So there's not that strong matching over a long period of time. And a boot camp is typically much cheaper, right? I mean, my whole university degree as an international student cost me $120,000. A boot camp to learn what I know, what I'm doing as a project manager might cost $10,000, maybe $5,000, right? So we're seeing a rise of boot camps because of the effectiveness and because we're a little bit quicker. With universities, they typically have government funding and regulation and large size and bureaucracy. So whereas a boot camp at Skillhat, Apple releases some new technology, no-code technologies change, AI is implemented, our program switches, we invest in that. In 2-3 months, we change it up, right? So those things sometimes make a boot camp great. Now, here's the thing. If you're a young person, if you're 15, 16, 17, 18, my advice is to always go through college because of the depth and the discipline and the network and the experience, just an amazing experience. But if you're already older, like say you're coming into the country, to Canada as an immigrant, or you already finished one degree and you're saying, this is great, I want to learn a little bit more, but I don't have time. I have kids. I can't spend another 2 years. I just came into Canada. I need to get something quick. You want to consider a boot camp like Skillhat if you want speed, if you want effectiveness, if you want hands-on experience. I would consider a boot camp for roles such as like if you wanted to get into project management, product management, user experience design, software development, business analysis, cybersecurity. I would consider a boot camp like Skillhat. Does that answer your question, Jermaine?
Yeah, that actually did. And it's funny because it made me reflect myself. So when it comes to I've always been 50-50 on the university thing because I agree with you in the terms of like a lot of the value that people were getting out of university was a lot of the more abstract things. But I think, especially for our generation, the way that university was marketed, it was the be all end all to get a good job. And I think the distinction that I really value that you made was the intentionality on how to make university work for you, right? Particularly the networking stuff and the discipline stuff, right? It's like the last buffer you have if you're coming straight from like high school to university. It's the last buffer you really have before you're like really dropped into the working world. But like even going from high school to university is jarring because I remember one of the first things they did was they didn't take attendance. And I'm like, I'm sitting there ready to go like here, right? And like, they don't do that. But I do think that that's kind of gets lost on people, both in terms of how universities started marketing, but also because now there's a lot more weight to that decision on like picking something that's actually valuable, or that can actually like help you out, because there are a lot of degrees in university that are more passion project and don't always coincide with say the real world, so to speak.
Yes, yes, yes,
I say
yes,
this as someone with a journalism degree, so it does resonate with me in terms of that
yes,
intentionality. So,
yes.
folks, if you are curious about Mo and Skillhat, feel free to visit Skillhat.ca/Jobfather. It's on the screen right here, and you'll be able to speak with a Skillhat Learning Design Specialist, and they'll give you personalized advice on your tech career, and even point you in the right direction in terms of resources that will help get you set up for that kind of success. This is also open forum, as always. Don't be shy. Ask questions in the chat. I know I see some questions right now, and we're going to get to them in just a little bit. But again, if you have anything that you want to ask with regards to Skillhat as a programming, Mo himself, how to get into tech insights, is AI really as scary as they're saying an AI is? Don't be shy. You know, again, we're open community here. So Mo, I'm glad you kind of opened up the door here, right? Perfect transition, because as we talk about the pros and the cons, and trying to figure out what's the right fit for you when it comes to education, I would really love to get your insights and just some firsthand knowledge on what makes Skillhat different from other e-learning platforms out there. Because I think part of the challenge is knowing what platform, if you're going to do like a boot camp or e-learning course, what platform is the right fit for you? What are some things you should be watching out for? So, and like, again, success stories, like how can I make sure that I'm maximizing my chances for success? So can you share a little bit about what sets your approach apart, especially when it comes to helping people succeed in tech?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll definitely talk about what sets us apart and how we're going to help those who are listening right now achieve their goals. But in general, I'm going to start by giving you some advice on how to think through it for yourself, whether or not Skillhat's in the picture. If you are saying to yourself, okay, I'm making between 40K and 60, 70K, and I want to get the six figures, or I'm at six figures and I want to get to 200K, 250K, or whatever it is, you have to ask yourself a question on three things. One, your personality, right? So to know where you want to go from where you are, there are three things that'll help you make that decision. One is your personality. Two is your academic and professional background. And three is your current situation. Okay, let's start with personality. If you have a personality where you're naturally outgoing or naturally curious or naturally more an extroverted speaker, there's roles that fit that personality versus if you were more introverted, more analytical, more so looking to do math, more so looking to work alone for long stretches of time and be creative, there's roles that fit that. And you should go in line with that personality, right? For me, for example, I'm highly extroverted. I'm also a manager. I like to manage people and set a big vision and drive to that vision, right? So if I was in a role where I was executing somebody else's vision and working on a very small thing that's very technical, I might get bored after a while, right? So because when I was in college, I did IT. I forgot to give you guys context. I went to University of Toronto for IT and business, right? And that was a great education. I can never say anything bad about universities specifically because of that. But in those programs, I realized I loved like the management stuff, the strategy stuff, the coding classes. I didn't love it, but I did okay in it. I did well enough, but I didn't love it. So your personality is so key because this is your everyday, right? So you want to do something that fits that personality. So I would talk to somebody who can. I do a personality test actually. I did one when I was growing up called the Myers-Briggs test, and it told me actually you did become a CEO, a teacher, or a project manager. And guess what? I did all.
ENTJ? Is that what you're?
Yeah, I think. Is that what you are too?
You're
is that what you are too? Is that you as well, ENTJ?
No, I am a ENFP. So I'm like the glue guy that, you know, gives you like abstract ideas, and then I go and work with the people to lay down the foundation to do so. Yeah. But no, I know I got a lot of ENTJ friends. Yeah. For example, ENTJ, that my favorite ENTJ is Tony Soprano.
Okay.
Mo's a good guy, though. Mo's a good guy. But
Interesting.
I love Tony Soprano. He's a good ENTJ, very calculating, very strategic, very charismatic, and people are drawn to his leadership.
You got that. You got that. So that's the first thing, personality. So, just about myself. It said I should either be a CEO or a teacher or a project manager. So I did all three. I became a project manager. I started teaching project management. I started a company that does that. And it's perfect. I love my life because what I'm doing fits my day-to-day. That's the first thing, your personality. The second thing is your academic and professional background, right? It's easier. You got to use what you have to get you where you want to go, right? So if you already have a degree in like healthcare, for example, or maybe you want to get into health tech, for example, right? Or you want to get into areas in tech that leverage that educational background. We have examples of folks who took our programs at Skillhat who are now healthcare business analysts or healthcare product managers because they came from being nurses. There's a lady in our program, there's actually two ladies. They were both friends, Chantel and Nikki in the US. If you guys are watching, big ups to you. I love you guys for just your hard work and crushing it. They came and took the Skillhat BA program together, and everyone was talking about the job market's hard. When they got a job, they both got a job within a month and a half of taking the program. They were both nurses, and they both got jobs as health tech business analysts, helping hospitals implement healthcare software because of their background. Now, Nikki, I told Nikki that the job market's been hard. She says, I didn't know it was hard. My first job I interviewed for is the first job I ever got. I did one application, I did one interview, I got the job. Why? Because it fit the background that she already had, right? So you want to be able to go and leverage what your existing background will help you do. That's the second thing. As personality, background. The third thing is your current situation, right? If you're a mom with 4 kids, you got a demanding husband, you got bills to pay, you don't have time, that might affect how much effort you can put into becoming a data scientist that might require a PhD, right? You don't have time to get there. So my advice there is to kind of like take baby steps, right? Think about what is the next big milestone I can achieve to break into the tech industry or break into a higher paying role. Maybe it might take 4 months, sprint to get that done. You achieve a new milestone, you have some new income, you get a babysitter, you get cleaners, you have more free time, get to the next milestone to now become a manager there, now do whatever you want to do, right? So you want to have these set milestones that you can hit based on your current situation. So again, my advice is if you're looking to increase your income, grow into leadership or to be more technical, figure out your personality, do a personality test. Think about who wants you based on your already existing academic background and professional background, your work experience. What is the next role that wants your insight? And then 3, with your current situation, what can you do? If you're like a young single dude, you got time, cut out all the distractions and just focus on building the next couple of years in your career. So that's what you should do. And now, why should you do that with Skillhat is because that's what we focus on. Coming through Skillhat, that's the first thing we'll help you do. We're going to ask you to say, hey, let's learn about these things. So the first thing we do is we have a deep assessment with you to understand all these things. So you have a learning advisor call with one of our expert trained advisors who will understand your background and everything I've said, and they'll build you a clear roadmap to helping you get to the role you want to get to in multiple steps. And once we've set that roadmap, we're a one-stop shop to get it all done. Most people struggle to achieve their goals because they have half-baked solutions. What does that mean? Think about like me and you, we lose weight, we gain weight, but now we're on a good path, right? I remember when I was trying to lose weight the first time, I was working with a trainer and I'm like, I'm putting in work, man. I'm working out. What's going on? I'm not losing the weight as fast as I want to lose weight. He's like, hey, listen, I can control what happens in the gym. But once you leave the gym, it's up to you. You got to focus on 3 things, your diet and your sleep. So most people are working on just working out and they're forgetting to eat healthy and sleep well. And so you have to have a full-fledged solution. And Skillhat is a full-fledged solution that covers all the gaps you have to fill to land the job of your dreams, which is why our success stories are crazy. We're seeing people go from being Uber drivers and security guards to now being product managers with the Toronto Raptors. We're seeing folks go from making $30K a year to making $30K a month because our processes work, right? And I observed this myself having worked in tech, going from a project coordinator, doing social media, to being a VP at 27 years old, I observed there's 4 gaps that you have to fill to land a high-paying tech role. The first is the skills gap. So if y'all watching, you want to write this down. If you want to increase your income and go from where you are to where you want to be, you can't have a half-baked solution, right? You can't just work out and forget to sleep and forget to eat healthy. You won't lose weight. Same thing if you're trying to grow in your career. There's 4 gaps you have to fill. The first is the skills gap. Okay, the skills gap. Now, this is pretty obvious. If you want to become a cybersecurity analyst or a product manager and you're working maybe in accounting or customer service, you know you don't have the skills. That is pretty obvious. Now, you actually want to break the skills gap into 4. So if you got a pen and paper, write this stuff down. This is going to help you. You got to break the skills into another 4. The skills are broken into the technical skills, the soft skills, the tools for the job, and the certification. You got to get all 4 in the first one, in the skills bucket. And once you've done that, you're in a pretty good shape. But there's 3 more you got to do. The second thing is you got to get hands-on experience in a cross-functional team. Because tech is not just what did you learn and what do you know, what skills do you have. It's tell me about a time you've applied this. You're a recruiter yourself, Jermaine. Interviews are not about what did you learn in boot camp. It's about tell me a time, give me a situation you've solved the same problem that we had. And so the truth is with tech and in any kind of high-paying role, really, you want to do the work before the job, right? You want to prove yourself to be able to solve that problem in a real-world scenario before the actual job. And so we have ways that we can put you into a team whereby if you want to be a developer or a designer or product manager, before the actual job, you start doing that work within Skillhat, working on products, working for startups, working within Skillhat as a startup to build out products that you can launch, showcase your skill sets. So coming out, you already have a portfolio, you already have stories to tell, working with an actual team of developers, designers, product managers, depending on your role. The third gap you want to fill is the marketability gap, being marketable, right? And the first thing there is even just knowing what roles you can qualify for. I was talking to a lady today who's in our BA program, and she's coming in from being a recruitment coordinator. And I said, hey, looking at your background, are you aware that you can qualify for other roles beyond the BA role? You could be a project coordinator. You could be a customer success manager. You could be a technical writer. And we looked online. There's 40,000 jobs for a project manager right now in the US. She's in New York. There are 10,000 BA jobs. She had no idea these jobs even existed. So first, being marketable is actually just even being aware of what's out there. Second of all, it's having a fantastic resume that's tied to each role. So a lot of folks, maybe they're aware that I can apply for a project manager role, but I'm in sales. And they use the exact resume from the sales role for the project manager role. Good luck. It's not going to work, right? So I've seen that happen so many times. You have to tailor the resume to the job you're applying for. And it's actually not that hard. But if you don't know what to do, you're not going to get it right? And we're going to help you with that at Skillhat. So marketability is the third one, which means knowing the right role for yourself. Secondly, having a strong resume that will attract the role to you. Third is having a fantastic LinkedIn profile so you don't just apply to jobs, the jobs apply to you, right? And the fourth is being able to crush the interview. So when you go interview, you're so good. People are like, hey, when can you start, right? We had a story of one of our alumni, Shirley Reed. She prepped with me and my team at Skillhat for a BA job, and she went to the interview. The case they gave her was the exact same case we did in class, build a business case. She was driving home, and as soon as she got in her car and started driving, they called her back, say, hey, come back. When can you start? She turned back and went back upstairs. We've seen that happen again recently with another one of our alumni, right? So the marketability piece is key, and how we solve for that is we give you one-on-one coaching. So you're going to have a one-on-one coach who's a senior professional in that space and will help you land the role you want. We're going to do a lot of role play, interview prep. We're going to look at your resume, ensure that it's the exact thing that the employer wants to see. And, you talked about this recently, Jermaine. A lot of people have some wins, but don't know how to talk about those wins. You had a very good post you made about a developer who just said, I built a website. But okay, what does that mean? How many pages on the website? How many hits did you get? How exactly did you do it? What tools did you use? How much revenue did the website make for the company, right? People forget to appropriate the wins of the company to themselves, right? So being able to tell your story and not just say, I was able to create a project charter and I also manage the project, but also, hey, this project helped generate $10 million in income for the company in the first 5 months. This product helped us remove efficiency and cut down processing time by 20%, right? Being able to tell that story is so key, and folks don't know how to do that. That's the third piece, marketability. And the fourth thing you have to do is you have to have a network, because it's not just what you know, but also who you know. And especially as you get more senior, right? Can they trust you? Do they know you? Who can vouch for you, right? You want to have a network of peers, a network of mentors, a network of leaders to give you insight, because, as a recruiter yourself, you know that only about 30% of jobs get posted. There's a hidden job market, right? And so in summary, you want to have to go from where you are to where you want to go. You want to solve for 4 gaps: the skill sets, the hands-on experience, the marketability, and the network.
Yeah. You know what I really like? I'm a big fan of storytelling too. Like anyone that's paid attention to how I do my work, or pay attention to even just like my feed and the things I like to talk about, I find stories captivating. And I think the reason why humans as a whole, like stories, like history is literally it's story. Like the word story is rooted in there. And I think the reason why storytelling as a framework works so well for your career is not only does it give you the optimal way to lay out information to relay it to somebody, especially if there are like very different dots or phases, but it also allows you to get people to emotionally buy in to what it is that you're saying, what it is that you're doing. And if you're able, and I learned this in sales, and I used to work for Good Life, even if you're able to get into the perspective or into the head of the person so that they understand why this is of value to them, you can make all the difference. And like, again, like you say it yourself, you teaching people how to be aware of, like, say, their unique value proposition, how it aligns up with either an organization or product or service, so that story can resonate even more. We do have a couple of questions before we continue on. I do have a couple of questions in the chat. And like I said, folks, you can ask them here. You could also visit the link that we have here, Skillhat.ca/Jobfather, and you'll be able to learn more about like how you can start your tech journey, how Skillhat might be able to help you out. And you hopefully, like, you can you can have your success story through here too, or whatever knowledge we drop. So Latoya asks us, what about those who are in the area of learning design and technology? She's interested in combining education, tech, and advocacy to make an impact. How would she go about doing that?
Yeah, great question. So you're doing learning design technology, which means that you're already in technology. Specifically, you're building systems that help people learn. So that's already great. Congrats on that, Latoya. So you're saying you want to combine the education skill set that you have, technology to make an impact. What kind of impact? I'm not really sure. So my first thing is to make your goals clear so that anyone can help you achieve that goal. If you can maybe send another message. But if you're saying you want to increase your income, in terms of impact, or you want to build a product to help more people, those are some goals that we could talk about that make an impact. If to increase your income, I would look at what are some roles that exist that leverage your skill set that might pay more because they have a broader scope or broader impact, right? So if you're working at like my friend Tolu, one of the instructors at Skillhat in product management, he was working at Meta, and he interviewed with Meta and Google, and he's like, listen, I was working at Sportsnet before. I was doing well building apps that had 100,000 users. That's a lot. But when I go to Meta, the same thing I'm doing, the same requirements, document I'm writing will affect maybe 1 billion people because Meta has like billions of users. And so because of that reason alone, he's going to get paid way more at Meta for the same thing than at Sportsnet because the risk is greater and they want the best people, so they're going to pay more and they have more money because they have more customers. So I would look and say, what companies and what roles will leverage the skill sets that I have that might pay more, first of all. Secondly, what do I have to then do to get there? Which is, again, back to this 4-gap method. What skills do you need? What hands-on experience do you need to get? How do you make yourself marketable for that, and how do you build a network around that? And I go about that in that way. Hope that answers your question, Latoya.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really solid answer. And I would mimic a lot of what you said. One thing I would also say too, somebody that's in the LDT space specifically, if you aren't already, I would encourage you to look within the higher ed ecosystem. A lot of higher ed ecosystems are now looking to
So what is
incorporate
higher ed? Do you want to break that down?
higher education. So think of universities, think of business schools, think of PhD programs, think of your old school Ivy League colleges, universities, I should say. That is all higher education. Think of the older educational institutes, right? Ones that have been around for hundreds of years. I made a post earlier today talking about looking at industries that are prime for business transformations. And usually you can either look at the age of an industry or the age of an institution to kind of get an idea of like where they are in that business transformation journey. And a lot of them right now, because they have a lot of what's called technical debt, old technologies that they need to continue working that they can't risk shutting down unless they have something to seamlessly go into. They're always primed to do these big business transformations because they want to do everything at one time as much as possible to like lower their chances or lower the amount of time that those systems are going to be down. So they are incorporating and they are bringing in a lot of people that are in the learning design tech space, right? Not only to help them onboard and get these new technologies on play, but also to introduce newer ways to interact with their students. And I think that's something the pandemic forced a lot of educational institutions to do, is to figure out a proper strategy so that remote learning is a lot more worthwhile than it has been or was exposed to be during the pandemic. But Latoya, I hope that you got your answer. If not, as I said, feel free to connect with Mo's team or message me about myself, but they will also give you an example of, again, different workflows or different sort resources that can help you out. So this next question is a bit too long for the screen, so I'm going to condense it a little. But Mo Wilson mentioned that he did try to reach out to Skillhat a month ago, but unfortunately, he was informed that the classes were filled up for project management. With that said, his current skills and his resume are really for GRC roles. So his question is, given the already competitive environment in cybersecurity, what differentiates Skillhat from the other, and in some cases, cheaper online courses? And what systems do you have in place for new immigrants in Canada who are fighting the challenge of Canadian employers insisting on Canadian experience?
Yeah, we've been hearing that for the last 10 years with Canada saying we're going to bring in 1.5 million new immigrants a year. But then when they get here, they say, oh, you're a new immigrant? Yeah, you can't get a job. You don't have Canadian experience. Like, what the hell? It makes no sense. So I sympathize and empathize with you, Wilson, but I got you. Let's make it happen, right? So you're saying that your resume, from what I'm seeing on screen, is already set up for roles in governance, risk, and compliance, GRC, for cybersecurity, and you want to get a job in that space. So how can a new immigrant like yourself bypass the Canadian experience constraint to land a position? Again, I refer to the 4-gap method. If you believe you have all the skills, that's the first step. Congratulations. Now you have to go demonstrate that. If the employers want Canadian experience, then let's give you Canadian experience. So we set up an accelerator, a technology incubator program where we build companies. So within Skillhat, we build businesses, we build companies. And so you can actually work within Skillhat on a product. So you can work on a product with a team, launch an app, and be the cybersecurity analyst on that product, launch it to market. It could be an app or a web app or mobile app. And then you have Canadian experience in that resume to talk about doing it with the Canadian team, using Canadian standards, and getting Canadian users. And that's worked wonders for a lot of our alumni. We have one of our alumni, Naomi Hassan, who was already in the US. She's American. She got a job at American Express as a senior product manager. But what did she do to get that job? She was she came to Skillhat and built an app called Unity Stash, which is a fintech app that helps you save money with your friends so you can put it into vacations and stuff like that. She built the app with a team of developers and designers who are also in the Skillhat community, and they launched that product. But that was a fintech product, financial technology, and she used that on her resume as a project to talk about, and that impressed the folks at one of the biggest fintech companies in the world, American Express, right? So that's my first tip. I would recommend that we never want to stop learning and never want to stop building. So you hear me say that a lot. Never stop learning, never stop building. The worst thing you can do is learn a bunch of skills or come to a new country and just keep applying for jobs, and you stop learning and you stop building. You always want to keep building new things and innovating. Now it's hard to do, right? But I feel like sometimes getting the job is harder than the actual job itself, right? You see all these tough job descriptions, you're like, this is crazy. You start the job, and you're like, oh, this was a piece of cake. Like, it wasn't even an hour. But that's what you got to do. Put your best foot forward in the stages, and it'll all work out for you in the future. But the first thing is the 4-gap method. Get cross-functional hands-on experience in Canada or in the US. Then you want to then build that marketability. Maybe you're not telling your story well enough. Maybe you're not as articulate as you can be. Maybe your resume is not as great as it could be, right? Maybe your LinkedIn needs to get better. There's always ways to become more marketable, right? If Will Smith and Martin Lawrence are spending time and money marketing their new movie, Bad Boys, and they have biggest brands, and they're still going hard marketing, you should market yourself even better, right? And the last piece is the network. You want to build a success network, and that's what differentiates Skillhat. We have a track record of massive success. Again, it's a community where alumni may combine over $20 million a year. You're going to meet people who have 3 jobs, 4 jobs, right? Contractors, and they're just making bank, and they're looking for people who can even help them, right? You can even intern under one of our alumni who's just crushing it, and it will give you confidence. And so we have also a lot of coaching who will help you with your marketability. And so that's what I'd say differentiates us. We're a full-fledged solution. And if you are a woman or a Black professional or BIPOC, meaning you're of color, we focus on that. That's our mandate. And so you're going to feel very comfortable here, and we're going to push you to achieve your goals.
Do you ever, in your community channels, I know you got a community channel, anyone ever try to have the plantain versus plantain discussion?
People come with all sorts of interesting stuff all the time. It's always fun to see different personalities, different experiences, different backgrounds. It's kind of wild.
But it's mountain and plantain, not mountain. Okay, I'll play with you. Lyle asked, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. And I know you kind of touched about this in the chat, but I think this is a good question for that's on everyone's mind. She has an educational background in BA. She can't get a job right now, though. So how would Skillhat be able to help her?
Yeah, there's a few things you need to do today to stand out and be different. And we have seen some of these tips and tricks work. And I'll share it in the open. This is things we put out in the public. One thing that we're seeing is because of the tough job market today, if you're a new entrant, you're going into your first role as an analyst or as a designer, you may be competing for the same role as a senior analyst who got let go from Twitter or got let go from Facebook or something like that, right? So now the competition is a lot tougher. That's the first challenge you have to face. So how do you, as a new entrant, differentiate yourself from somebody who's been dominant in that space? Well, one thing is to just become more noticeable. They say out of sight is out of mind. So being in sight is being top of mind. One of our tips and tricks that I recommend is going into every interview. So Lyle, you have to break down the constraints. If you are applying for jobs and you are not getting interviews, then the first gap is that either the resume needs to be better, or the roles you're applying for needs to be wider, or you need to apply for more roles, right? So again, making better resume, applying for different roles, and just increasing the volume. Those are 3 things you can do to get more interviews. Okay. Now, if you are getting interviews and you're not crushing the interviews, you're not converting, then it's a matter of your interview skills, right? That's just pretty much what it is, right? How are you going to be the best candidate in the interviews? Or also, are you getting enough interviews? So if you're getting enough interviews, so enough means you're doing you're interviewing with like at least 3-4 companies every month, and you're still not getting something, then it's the skills. If you're doing one new company a month, that's not enough. So we help you diagnose the constraints and solve each constraint one by one. That's the first thing. Now, one of my big tips that can solve for all the constraints is doing one thing. I know what else is doing. There's actually two things. The one that will solve for actually crushing the interview is something where you use AI for the interview, which is called the 30, 60, 90-day plan. No one's doing this. What that is, take note, guys, is you go into an interview saying, oh, by the way, I've already put together a plan for how I'm going to come in this role and dominate and help you guys crush it. How would you do that? It's very simple. You grab the job description, okay, you copy it, go to ChatGPT, and you say, you put this prompt in ChatGPT. Create me a 30, 60, 90-day plan for this role. And you paste the job description in there, and then ChatGPT will put together a plan that you can present to the interviewer. You take that plan that will talk about in month 1, I'm going to do this, in month 2, I'm going to do this, and you add your own personal story. Jermaine just talked about storytelling. You add your personal stories for how you've already done this and that. So for a BA, you could say, in month 1, I'm going to focus on understanding the business problem and figuring out who the stakeholders are and mapping everything together. Okay, for example, in my past role, I have this how I've done it. You create that plan, you take it to another AI tool. There's AI tools that can make you presentation decks, like Slides.ai.io and some others. You put that in there, and then now you have this beautiful presentation. Okay, when you go into the interview, you say, hey, Mr. Interviewer, I'm excited for this interview. I was so excited. I put together a 90-day plan showing you how I'm going to crush it in this role. Do you mind if I have 5 minutes at the end to present this to you? Jermaine, you're a recruiter. What do you think the employer is going to say when you say that?
I think they'd actually be very intrigued to say the least. So like 30, 60, 90 days usually come up in an interview, but usually it's the employer telling you what to expect in these 30, 60, 90 days. I do like this idea quite a bit because especially for like startups, right? If you're going to go interview for a startup, I find that I always joke around about how like startup founders have a little like cult leader in them. And like, that's because it's not to say that like they're weirdos or anything, but it's to say that like a lot of the really good startup founders personally believe in that their solution, they don't even look at it as like a product or service. They look at it as like a solution to solve a specific problem that is going to end up changing the world somehow. And that's what a lot of the great ones fundamentally believe in. And right. And of course, ideas evolve as things change, but early startup founders, and I say this as somebody that's worked in incubators, seen startups rise and fall, recruited for them, taught them how to recruit and look out for talent. One of the things that they always looked out for, and one of the things that I was trained to make them look out for when it came to screening people, was how many people understand your vision, right? So when you present, if I'm a startup founder and like, let's say like I'm a deep tech startup founder, so it's like it's around lasers or cryptography, for instance, right? And these kind of startups can be hard for people to understand or see what the vision is. You come to me with a 30, 60, 90, even if you're off base on what we're trying to do here, I like the initiative, right? Especially if you present it in a way where I can tell you did your research around what it is. Like maybe you went on a couple of forums and you had chats with our actual customers. Maybe you went and you like looked up the awards that we won, saw the criteria for the awards. Maybe I did this and it kind of backfired on me, but maybe you listened to all of my podcast episodes and then you're waiting to bring it up to me, right? And when I say it backfired on me, I once opened the interview by telling the founder what his mom's name was. Because I went and listened to his whole entire podcast and he was so like, the interview was just weird after that. He was like, yo, I don't want to talk to this guy anymore. But if you present a 30, 60, 90, you're getting them bought into the idea that, yo, I understand what you're trying to do. I understand how I can hit the ground running so that I'm not a liability, i.e., this is how I'm going to make your life easier. And if you can answer that question in an interview, a lot of times you're going to find yourself on the path to success or on the path where people are going to like rate you a little bit more than they would have otherwise. So I'm about it. I think it's
Let
a
me
great
ask you
idea.
a question, Jermaine. This is just a simple question, right? If you could estimate how many interviews like have you conducted in your career? Like I'm saying, like final stage. Not the first screening call, like the final stage, like the 1 hour big interviews. Like, just give me a random number.
Bro, I think it might be over 10,000.
Okay, of those 10,000 interviews, how many people have come to you with a 30-90 plan in an interview?
I would say if I had to give percentage, I would say maybe like 2 to 5%, and I would say of that 2 to 5%, 50% of them, it was asked of them because it was part of the interview process where they had to do a presentation for the role. Sometimes, a lot of times, anytime I've seen a 30, 60, 90, it was because somebody was becoming a department head, right? Which is why I rate the idea, because anytime you got somebody that is in the junior position that's thinking like a vet, right? That's value. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like you're watching the NBA and you're like, sometimes they're like, yo, he plays like he's been in the league for 10 years. That's why I always tell my junior people, like, you want the narrative to go from, hey, yo, Mo, you only got like 2 years of experience, you're kind of junior, to, yo, how the hell do you know so much in 2 years?
Yep.
Like, where are you getting this from? Who told you that? You know how people look at Nardwar when he's doing the interviews?
Yeah. That's what you want to interview. Like, yo, how do you know this?
How do you know that? Like, you know what I'm saying? But like I said, don't be telling people.
Like, how do you know so much about us? Like, how do you know so much about our company? How do you know so much about what we're doing that we don't even necessarily remember?
Exactly. Right? Or like, yo, how'd you get this version of our logo? Like, I scraped this from the internet myself. How'd you get this? So like, I rated for that. So,
you're gonna say only about 1 to 2.5% of people actually on their own. Now, if those are 1 to 2.5% of people, how much do you think it increased their chance of getting that job?
So I would say it increased it a good amount. The only thing is that there's still a risk to it, right? Because, and I would say it's a very small percentage, but like when I say very small percentage, these are assholes that you don't even want to work with. But there are some people that might take the initiative wrong, and that usually is because like they're insecure and they perceive any type of competence as like a slight against their job. Oh, Mo, yo, man, I've been through some things.
Well, let's tell the audience. Let me just say this right now.
Yeah,
I prescribe this at Skillhat, and I have a lot of screenshots of messaging me back saying, "Hey Mo, this is insane. I did this thing you told me. I did a 90-day plan. I asked for 7 minutes at the end. I presented it. The employers were wowed. They called me right away and said, no one's ever done this. We're giving you the job." Or I didn't get the job, but they called me back and said, "Hey, I love your initiative. I'm going to give you some feedback. And I'm going to remember you for the next interview." So forget whoever is looking at competence as a threat. You don't want to work with those guys anyway.
No,
but people
you
who
don't.
are looking to solve problems and see you as a problem solver with initiative. Again, it's not just a plan of what I'm going to do, but a plan of what I'm going to do and how I've done it in the past already. Right?
Yes.
If you do that,
here's what I would say. I would say, of course, don't consider the assholes, but like, there are going to be some things that happen that are outside of your control that shouldn't knock you or stop you from doing something that's the right move. Right.
Exactly.
So I would say it's been a good move. I wouldn't say that when it's been done outright without being asked, it's been received well. The 1 or 2 times, like I said, it's not worth mentioning, but like, you're going to come, like, I think everyone can talk about either a toxic manager or just a stupid interviewer. You're going to come across those, but you got to know how to read when it's something where it's an area of opportunity for you yourself to improve, or when like the interviewer is just a jerk and it's not worth your time.
That's what I would say. That's what I would say as well. So that's one way to stand out. Another way, really, really quickly, because again, you're going into an industry where there's vets and you have to differentiate yourself, is something called competitive analysis. It's very simply saying, hey, I look at your business and I analyze your positioning versus your competitors. And I think here's where you're really strong. And here's some opportunities. So like a SWOT analysis. I think you guys are doing fantastic here from what I've seen as an outsider. I think that there's opportunity in the market to capture this space. And I think that these are weaknesses that I may be seeing, but I could be wrong in some threads. What do you think? Now, you always want to say, what do you think? Was I right here? That just shows a different level of initiative. That one's a little bit harder than 30, 60, 90-day plan, because to do that, to do the competitive analysis, you could be way off and completely wrong. So don't take that risk if it's not a role in product management or strategy that requires deep business insight. And don't do it if you don't have that business insight. But if you do, that could really catch fire. The last thing I'll say here, okay, and this is to solve for getting interviews. This one will solve for getting more interviews, is to do what's called a prospecting video. And what this is where you send a cold LinkedIn video. You record yourself on your computer with Loom or Slack or whatever, and you record that video. You send it to the hiring manager or a leader in the company, not just sending your resume, a specific video saying, hey, one thing I've noticed in your industry, Jermaine, is that tech recruiters struggle to do X and Y. And I don't know what the situation is causing that, but I think it's one of these three things. Now, in the past, I've solved this problem by doing this. I also noticed that you're hiring to build a new this and that. My name is Mo. I love to have a chat. I actually applied for the role you posted. And if you would like to learn about how I've done this and done that, I'd love to have a chat with you. That is the prospecting video. I've seen that work quite well as well. Very well, it works. If you shoot out 10 prospecting videos, you're going to hear back from at least 3 people. If you shoot out 10 resumes, you're going to hear back from 0, right? So that's something that goes above and beyond. It only works in smaller companies, like you're applying for startups. If you send it to the founder or you send it to a hiring manager, those typically work as well. So again, a prospecting video to get more interviews. And when you do get the interviews, doing a 36 to 90-day plan or a competitive analysis could help you a lot. Question to the audience: if you got value from that, and that was something that you think you could try, and you got value, put a V in the chat for me, so I know that you guys are seeing this and getting value. I appreciate that. Let me know.
So I would say one thing too as well, with regards to the video idea. I think it's a really good idea. I would also add that I found that this type of pitch works really. So let's say that there's a startup that you really want to apply or work for, right? What you could do is you can do what Mo suggested, and you should do what Mo suggested. But if you still don't hear back, there is one more person that you can actually send that video to. If you go on crunchbase.com and you put in the name of the company that you want to apply to, you can get a list of their investors, and you can send it to one of their bigger investors. And investors are open to good pitches, right? If your pitch video you feel like is really strong, send it to an investor, see what they say. Because a referral at the end of the day is still a referral. Don't get me wrong, from an intern, from a hiring manager, from a recruiter. But there is a certain level of gravity that comes with a referral from an investor. You know what I'm saying? So great idea. I think we should definitely, you should definitely like tap in on that. Okay. So I want to answer one more question, Mo, from the audience, and then we're going to get back to some of the other questions that I have that I think we also need to get through as well. But Rakia answered this, and I think it's such a really important one, because you see people all the time trying to make that transition. But as somebody that's an EA, what roles do you think would be good in tech for her? You can do high level, but you can also, if there are any EA success stories from Skillhat, please let us know like what they were able to get into, and why you think someone would be successful as an EA in that particular role.
Absolutely. So typically an executive assistant at a typical company will make between 40K and about 65K a year. If you're working at the higher end for senior executive, you might get to about 75, 80K, maybe 100 typically. So that's a good start. Now, the next level is being able to use those skills to get from 40, 50K to 70K, from 70K to 140K. So what are some of the skill sets that an EA would have? Typically as an EA, you're doing things like managing schedules. You're doing things like managing stakeholders. You're doing things like interpreting what might be on the mind of the executive before they say it. So having preemptive action. You're getting them organized. You're also filtering out the BS and leaving what matters. You're doing reporting. You're also helping them communicate out, right? So what are some of those skill sets? Where are those skill sets used in more higher paying roles? I would go to roles like project management, project coordination, right? I'd start there. So typically a project coordinator or project manager is doing similar work as the EA. The difference is that as the project manager, project coordinator, you own the project end to end. So now you're managing a bigger stakeholder group. One, let's say you're working at a company to help them go. Let's think about Walmart. Let's say a Walmart does not have any self-checkouts. They have typical cash registers and they want to set up self-checkouts. Well, that's a huge change in business process and technology. There's risk associated. They have to buy things. They have budget. They have schedules. So that's an example of a project that a project manager would run. Another example is one of our alumni, Curtis, who just got an amazing job at Hertz. Curtis, this guy was a plumber and a trades guy. Now he's a project manager with Hertz, the rental company, setting up new infrastructure, new physical locations for rentals, right? And setting up the technology infrastructure there across US and Canada, going from doing the trades and being a plumber to doing that with Skillhat. Now, I was making a point here. When you're getting to roles like that, you're looking at commanding 120K, 150K. There's a project manager I know, right, who works at the company who makes FIFA, EA Sports, right? This guy makes 300K a year, right? So how do you go from, again, the executive assistant role using the same skills of coordination, scheduling, managing some budget, to being a project manager is really being able to more like the why. The why is, let's talk about the why. The why is, again, you're managing bigger risk. Two, you're managing significant change for multiple stakeholders. When you're an EA, you're helping the one executive get their goals done. When you're a project manager, you're helping the whole company get their goals achieved in terms of new systems, new policies, new process, new technology. Because of that, you command a higher fee. And so I would look at project management, project coordination. You could consider business analysis as well, because those skills are transferable. You can also consider customer success management in a tech role. You can consider sales if you have knack for selling and people management. I consider those, and I will speak to the learning advisor at Skillhat. Go to skillhat.ca/book, or actually go to skillhat.ca/jobfather. Okay, to book with Jermaine's link, because you're going to get a discount from being here. Skillhat.ca/jobfather. Book a free call with a learning advisor at Skillhat, and they'll help you figure out what's the path to getting from where you are to where you want to go. But again, I recommend project management, project coordination, business analysis, customer success, business operations as higher paying roles in the tech space. Hope that answers your question, Rakia.
And I think also too, and I'm curious, how do you feel about as someone that's an EA potentially moving to an operations associate position or even a chief of staff position? Like, I feel like you make a really good point. Like, a PM is for the whole org. A EA is more for like one executive, or like in some cases, I got family that's like, I got someone in my family that's an EA for 6 VPs across 3 time zones. And I'm just like, yo, what the, you know what I'm saying? Like, yo, you know what I'm saying? Like, yo, when do you sleep? But I feel like, a contrast to the PM being for the whole org or product or vertical, chief of staff has a lot of similarities where the foundations of an EA, but a lot more complexity in terms of execution and influence. Do you think that might be a path worthwhile that somebody should look at?
It will be a long-term path. It wouldn't be the transition from an executive assistant to a chief of staff. I mean, if it's the same company and it's a smaller company, sure. But typically a company who has a chief of staff or supporting an actual CEO, again, similar skill sets, but the chief of staff role is more dynamic. The chief of staff is helping the CEO execute their vision, which is not set in stone, and it differs depending on the CEO themselves and the company. So it's more situational based. Typically an EA role is less diverse. So typically from an executive assistant, you can go into like a operations manager, a director of a certain business unit, again, a project manager, a senior project manager, and then because the chief of staff is a C-level executive, so it will be a long-term path. It wouldn't be a direct path from executive assistant to chief of staff, but it will be a path. Yes.
Got you. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Folks, once again, if you would like to see what your potential career in tech could look like, and you want to get to learn a little bit more about the Skill Hat method and be one of their success stories, I think one of the things that you actually last showed me in your Slack channel was there was somebody that was a custodian janitor that actually got their first PM job, which I think is one of the coolest things. Visit link down here, Skillhat.ca/Jobfather, and you can link up with one of their learning design specialists, and they can kind of walk you through what that path would look like. Okay, so Mo, back to I got a couple more questions that I'm very curious now. I think we've all gotten an idea that you're a professional with a vision. So I am curious, looking ahead, what's your vision for Skillhat in the next 5 to 10 years? How do you see it potentially evolving? How do you see the offerings potentially being more diverse? And how do you anticipate being able to meet the needs or the future needs of the tech workforce?
Yeah, it's a great question. The tech workforce is always evolving, and so we always evolve with the market. And so we want to continue to be the premier provider of education, hands-on experience, coaching for anyone who wants to upskill, who wants to increase their income, who wants to build a community and become the best version of themselves. We want to be the place where you come to get the best technical skills and also the best soft skills. Because when you combine both, you can be technical and you can lead. You have unlimited potential. In addition, we're positioning ourselves to be that partner of choice for the best companies to hire the best people. So we have a staffing services unit that we're building out so that our alumni in the last 3-4 years, who will then have another 8 years of experience in about 5 years, we can then staff them to become directors leading companies. I had a call recently with the head of innovation at CIBC and the head of recruitment at the biggest bank in Canada, one of the biggest banks, big 4 banks. And they said, I told them, hey, we can give you great Black project managers, great Black designers. They're like, this is nice, but that's not our problem. We have enough Black professionals on our pipeline to get into our developer roles and our project manager roles. What we don't have is people who could be Black directors, Black VPs. And I said, why? He said, well, we typically see that they need more experience, more leadership capacity. And so we want that. Can you help us with that? I said, well, the truth is, yes, but not at the scale that you want. And that's not what we're doing right now, because our alumni in the last 3-4 years are fantastic at project management, product management, design, web development, and they're growing to become directors. So that's where we're going. We're working with our alumni so that in the next 3, 4, 5 years, we're going to now position them to now become directors. But why do these companies want the women and the Black professionals and Latinas to become directors and VPs? Well, the reason is because if you go to Starbucks, Jermaine, and you see a Black dude at Starbucks, typically when I go to Starbucks, it's just white women. And that's okay. That's cool. When I go to my son's school, all the daycare babysitters are all white women. And that's okay. But when I went to Starbucks one time, they're playing hip hop. They're playing like 50 Cent versus Taylor Swift. And the cashier is a Black dude or a Black chick. Maybe I hit on her if I'm single. I stay there longer. Maybe I say, hey, what's going on, man? We start talking if he's a dude, and we just vibe. But I stay there longer, right? Because I'm seeing representation. In addition, if you're a big bank and your organization leadership is more diverse, you will have more diverse products and be able to attract a more diverse audience and serve a more diverse audience and be more culturally appropriate, right? We see the biggest brands like Louis Vuitton, Hennessy, Nike. They're able to permeate all cultures, Black culture, Latino culture, white culture, because and because of that, those companies are mega companies, right? And so these companies, they want leaders that are diverse because that'll help them have the best leadership. Stats show that women-led companies and companies where the global board includes women and Black professionals, they outperform companies where it's just white males because they're more diverse. They see different perspectives. They're more inclusive. And so to answer your question is, in addition to being the go-to place for anyone to upskill and become the best version of themselves, we will then become the go-to place for companies who want that talent to lead the organizations. And that's our mission.
I like that. It's funny. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Because I'm somebody that is always trying to read up on history. And when I was reading up on the 60s, I was surprised how deep segregation ran in terms of separating the Black community from the greater community, to the point where Black people had like in the 60s and for a lot of the 70s had a very high rate of entrepreneurship, right? Because there were just certain things that we were locked out of or that we didn't have access to. And then some executive in the 60s was like, hey, Black people, their money's green too, right? And then they started marketing towards Black people, and like that's how you start getting these multi-billion-dollar conglomerates buying up Black products, BET, Cantu, all of that. So I do find it interesting that an exec is like, hey, we can't get any Black directors, and I'm glad that you're there as a resource to like help point them out. But part of me is also like, I really wish they had the foresight to be like, hey, Mo, can we work with you in a way that maybe we can come up with an internal accreditation program where we can put someone through a boot camp to then confirm and have them come out as a director on the other.
That's what I proposed to them. That's what we proposed to them.
I'm glad that you're there, but I'm like, yo, it's not rocket science, Richard. Like,
build a path, right? Anyway. Build that, and that's what. Shout out to BPTN. That's what they're doing, right? They're building They're building these incubators, these relationships, this mentoring to enable Black technical professionals become leaders, right? So they're doing some of that work, and we want to start doing some of that work as well.
Yeah, I love it. We need more of it in the space. So for those watching today, right? What would your top piece of advice be for someone just starting out on their journey into tech, right? Maybe they watched a video and they're like, shit, this industry sounds like something I want to get in part in. Maybe they're in school right now and they're worried about the layoffs, or maybe they just really, really hate their job and they want to do something worthwhile, or at least get paid enough to live a life that's worthwhile. What would be your top piece of advice for someone like that?
I think it's not just one thing. There's no silver bullet. That's the first advice. There's no silver bullet whereby you do this one thing and everything changes. It's a myriad of things. And it's always back to our 4-gap method. It's learn the skills, build the experience before the job, become the most marketable version of yourself, and network to build that network, right? If you think in that frame and you work through that path, you've increased your chance of success dramatically. Because I've seen lots of people who come and they say, hey man, I've just been taking course after course after course and certification after certification after certification, but I can't get a job because in the interview they asked me, tell me a time you did why. And I'm like, I don't have any stories, but if you give me the job, I can do it. No, you gotta go do the work before the job. If that means volunteering, if that means starting where you are at your current organization, raising your hand and saying, hey, I'm in customer service now, but I want to do some strategy work. I want to actually build a product with the design team or the development team. Can I intern there? I've seen folks who are faking stuff in their resume. They polish their resume, they finesse it, they get the job, they get laid off in 3 weeks because they can't do the work. They don't have the skills. So you got to do all four: the skills, get the experience, build your network, and become the most marketable version of yourself, right? Again, I've seen folks who have the skills, they have the experience, but they suck in interviews. They have no confidence. You have to solve for all four. Now, in addition to that, as you go through your process, you will have imposter syndrome. As you grow, you will feel like maybe I'm not meant to be. With all the rejections, you will have that. So you want to have mental health support in going through these tough times and big goals. So that means having mentors. It means having a community. It means being resilient, taking care of yourself, exercising, working out. Right. I know you're a big mental health guy. You're always trying to work out, be in the right community. I appreciate that about you. You always want to do that with a family. Don't be isolated. Don't be at home just applying for jobs. Get out of your house. Go out to conferences. Meet people, right? Soak in what's going on in the community. When you go to conferences, there's such a huge advantage because one, when you watch these speeches, you hear what the experts are saying. You say the exact same thing in interviews. You sound a lot smarter. All stuff I'm saying today. I talked about how with AI, doctors can increase their diagnosis rate accuracy by 20%, from 40 to 60%. I learned that at a simple conference. I went on stage and I heard that. Now it sounds so smart. I just said what I heard, right? So one, think about the 4-gap method and go through that. 2, you need to build mental resilience by having great health mentors in the community. And you will feel the imposter syndrome. You will, right? If you don't feel imposter syndrome every 3 years, you're not growing fast. Okay? Quote me on that. If you don't feel like you're an imposter and you're like, is this really for me? Every 3 years, you're not growing fast. I was a VP first at 25 years old of a $100 million company. I became an AVP of a $1 billion company at about 27, 28. How do you think I felt leading a team of 10 developers across the US, Canada, and India, 5 BAs, people who are older than me? Then I became the CEO at 30 years old, launching a $1 million company, have 26 employees. How do you think I felt? I'm like, you got to do it afraid. In spite of your fear, you got to do it. One of my mentors, Layla Hormozi, she says, F your feelings, follow the plan. Follow the plan, and you'll be successful.
I rate it. Yeah, I think everything you hit it on the head, and like, yeah, man, I think that's one of the reasons why I try to work out as much as possible. I don't work out for because like for any like physical aesthetic reason. I work out to manage stress. You know what I'm saying? Especially as someone with aging parents, you start like stressing about that. Yeah, like, I'm gonna go lift up some weights or something. I like get my mind off of it. So I do appreciate that. We do have a couple of audience questions that I want to ask, about 3 questions, and then we will wrap up. But we do have, Mo and I do have an upcoming Twitter space as well, so be on the lookout for that. But Mo, first person, really good question. They unfortunately joined a bit late because they were in a meeting, but they want to know, how do you figure out which lane or role in tech you want to pursue if you don't know what in tech is the best fit for you, especially somebody pivoting from a previous non-tech job? What would you say to that, Mo?
That's a great question. And I talked about this before. You missed it, but I'm happy to go over it again. There's 3 things you need to think about, right? 1 is, what is your personality, right? 2 is your academic and professional background. And 3, your current situation. So your personality will give you direction on where you should go. If you're more outgoing, there's roles that fit that. If you're more introverted, there's roles that fit that. Now you have an existing background. You went to school for something. And you have some experience. Leverage that and see, based on my existing skills and background, who wants my industry expertise or my education that is at a higher level than where I'm at right now. And then 3 is your situation. Be realistic. If you are a mom with 4 or 5 kids and a demanding husband that you want to take care of, you may only have 2 hours a day to put in work. If at all, you have 2 hours, right? Whereas if you're a younger dude or a younger lady who has time, maybe you have 20 hours. Put that into what you need to put it into. So if you have time, invest that time. If you don't, figure out the quickest milestone you can hit with the time you have and go at it and get support. So 3 things that will help you figure it out. In addition, talk to an expert. Talk to me. Book a call with me. I would love to talk to you. Or add me on LinkedIn. And I can help you figure this out. We've trained over 1,000+ people who are thriving and crushing it in UX design and development. You know, we're seeing crazy stories of people who, after our programs with the intensity and the confidence, there's a guy called Prince. He took our web development program. He was in operations. He took our web development bootcamp and he built a product in Skillhat, an events management app that they launched. And his company had a project that they wanted to do. Remember, he was in operations, in manufacturing operations, not a developer in the company. He raised his hand. He said, hey, you guys are going to take this to an expensive agency, but I've just learned web development at Skillhat. I can build this app for you. He built the app for his company. This guy got promoted 3 times in 2 weeks after doing that. right? And so being able to raise your hand where you are is very important as well to land a job. Okay. And one thing I wanted to mention as well, I forgot to mention, is to think like an owner. Always think like an owner. I got to where I am today. Lucky for me, I've been blessed to get to where I am because I always felt like an owner. Meaning, if I'm working in a company, even if I'm a janitor, even if I'm in the lowest level of the company, I always think like I'm the owner of the company as far as analyzing how we could be better, taking ownership, going above and beyond. Right. I remember one time I was a VP at Venture Garden. I went to pitch the company, and I was pitching so hard with so much passion and breaking down the problems of our customer. And one of the ladies was like, "Oh, I thought you were the actual founder of the company. I didn't realize you just worked for the company." And that has always served me, from day one, just thinking like an owner, not just clocking in, clocking out, going above and beyond, spending time when you're at home, listening to podcasts about how to be better. That stuff really moves the needle.
Yeah, I think I love calling that the hustler's mentality because it's like like one of my favorite favorite entrepreneurs is actually 50 Cent. More so, and like I found out the other day doing the Myers-Briggs test, 50 Cent and Jay-Z have the same personality type, which sounds weird when you say it, when you think about how they move. And when I bring them up is because 50, even when he was blacklisted and shot and had no hopes of being a success, every single opportunity or every single person that he linked up with that perceived him as an employee, he perceived them as a partner, and he learned from them, challenged them, pushed them every single step he could so he could learn as much, absorb as much, and then move on to his next entity. But it also, what you also pointed out, Mo, in this journey is mentors and community, right?
Absolutely.
And it's being able to always have, I love you said about imposter syndrome, because it's always being able to put yourself in rooms where people are saying things in a language you don't understand, and then try to break down the code and understand the language and rinse and repeat until you're happy. And you should never really be satisfied with always being the smartest person in the room. You should always look for rooms where you can learn and grow. So when it comes to your career, whether you're a junior, intermediate, individual contributor, director, whoever's around you, same level, above, below, learn from them, take from them, add to your skill set so that you can produce more. So I definitely think that's a great one. And
absolutely, Jermaine, if you are the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
You're in the wrong room. You in the wrong room. You in the wrong room. Okay. And then I do have one final question from Mo. I know that we're at time. And I
got time. If you want,
got time. Okay, bless. Amazing.
Today I got time.
Today you got time. Okay. So I think this is also the most important thing. And again, if anybody is curious about getting started on their tech journey, Skillhat.ca/Jobfather, book a time. And it's a free call that they can have with a learning design specialist to figure out what career in tech would be a good fit for them. But when it comes to financial investment, right? How heavy of an investment does Skillhat require? Are there any payment plans, any scholarships, or any flexibility? What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a number of payment plans. I recommend that you check our website for our fees. They're pretty affordable. So, for example, if you want to become a BA and go through a full 4-gap method, from the sales training to putting you in a team to get the experience of building a product, to having a one-on-one coach working with you day and night on prepping you for interviews and working on your resumes and doing your case studies with you, up till networking and making intros for you. When you have an interview, saying, "Oh, I know a guy at MasterCard who took our program 2 years ago. Go talk to him," and then they give you the insight. That whole thing will cost between, I think it costs about 5,000 Canadian or US, or 5,000 USD, and that's a great price. If our average alumni increases their income by $45,000 a year, average increases their income by 45K, which means in 5 years they're about 225K or about 220K, whatever it is. If you told me that you want me to give you 5K and you give me 220K back in 5 years, I take that deal anytime, right? And the crazy part is we have a money back guarantee. We believe our programs, we're so confident in our method that it works, that if you take our process, or you take our programs and go through our methods and you're not successful, we'll refund you. Or we'll keep coaching you till you're successful. We have a money back guarantee. And in 3 years of doing this, we've never had one person come back and say, I want my money back, because the experience is so amazing and they just become a much better person and they eventually become successful. It's not a question of if, but a question of when, right? And the when is based on the intensity with which you put forth the effort. And so we have payment plans where you can pay in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, or 24 months. So I recommend you go to Skillhat.ca, check out everything on the site, but also book a call. So specifically Skillhat.ca/Jobfather to get your base discount. Book a free learning advisor call, and then you can see the payment plan options that we have. Not everything's on the website, so book that call to get the inside scoop. And also we have insider discounts. Okay, so book a call for that purpose.
I love that. One of the things that always annoyed me about some programs is you got to do the whole ball and chain carrot dance to get an idea of what the cost is. Like, I gotta sit down with you for an hour. That's actually how I almost got sold a timeshare. They made me sit down for 3 hours, dragging me around the damn island. And it wasn't until I ran into another group from Toronto and we looked at each other and we said, yo, a finesse ting? And I was like, yes, a finesse ting.
Damn.
And that's how we bailed each other out. But I like that you're straightforward. Okay, Bo, 2 more questions. For someone who's working full-time, how flexible are their learning options at Skillhat? Can I study at my own pace?
Yeah, the options are flexible, but most of our programs are instructor-led. They're live. So there's 2 kinds of learning, right? There's self-paced and there's instructor-led. Self-paced is where you watch videos like on YouTube or Coursera or Udemy, and that's great. Instructor-led is where you come to a live class taught by an expert instructor like myself. Typically, our instructors are senior people who work at companies like Amazon, EA Sports, the big banks. They're doing the actual job day to day, and they teach in the evenings. Now, we have found that instructor-led programs are much better for success, especially with our mission to launch you into a new dream career. When you go through a program with a group, you have a cohort of 20, 30 people. You meet them, you're doing group work with them, class work. You get to have in-person meetings with our conferences that we do in Toronto and in the US. You build a relationship. It's a much better experience, and it's a lot easier to transition. Just so you know, if you do the industry average for a self-paced program, so the Coursera, the Udemy, is 10%. Only 10 of 100 will actually finish these courses. Whereas at Skillhat, our completion rate is about 90%. And that's because of the experience and the immersive nature of the programs and the community. So it's flexible because the classes are recorded. So every week it's about 5 hours of class plus another 3 hours of homework, right? It's all recorded. You can watch it on your own, but if you're only watching recordings, you're not going to finish our program. You have to come to some or most of the live classes because that's the experience that we see drive success. Hope that answers your question, whatever that was.
Yeah, thank you. And then last question, which I think we kind of already touched on, but what's the future of tech jobs, especially with the rise of AI and automation? How can I future-proof my career by starting now?
Yeah, the future, like we said at the beginning, if you missed it, is the popular saying, AI is not taking your job specifically, but somebody who's going to use the AI, if you don't use it, will take your job. And so the future is to use AI in your existing role right now. I'm not sure who was the person who asked that question. What's their name?
This was submitted through our FAQ form, but someone did ask in the chat. I think it was, oh geez, let me just scroll up here. I think it was, nope, I can't find it. But it was asked before. I'm not sure if
no worries. I was just going to use the example. So I'll use a random example, right? So say you're in sales, right? In the sales industry, typically, whenever you have a sales call, you really have to send an email back to the client saying, hey, client, we just had a great call. Here's like some follow-up stuff. Here's how to pay. You can automate that, right? You would build a workflow with your CRM where after a call, the recordings of that call go into CRM. The recordings go to your customer, analyze it, saying, we had a conversation, here's your pain points, here's what we're offering. You can approve that. It gets sent to the customer. All you have to click is one button to approve that. Now, that's something you would do in the past manually in sales, for example, right? And so that's one application whereby you're using artificial intelligence to do your work and automate stuff for you. If you are in, for example, healthcare, I went to the hospital for my son's checkup 2 weeks ago. The doctor typically is scribbling all these notes when you're talking to them. They had no notes. I noticed on your screen they were taking AI recordings in the hospital. The doctor is speaking to me and my wife and my son, and everything is being recorded through AI, being transcribed, being summarized, right? And so that's the doctor leveraging AI to become smarter, right? And save a lot of the hard work that's more laborious. So my first thing is to use AI in your job itself. The second thing is to not think about beyond me using AI, how can the overall business and the whole company improve by leveraging technology, right? Being that implementer of new solutions. That's the position you want to be in to really drive companies forward and be someone who's undisputable, who's immovable from your company, because you're that integrator who's driving things forward all the time. And so once you're in that position, your success is inevitable.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people have a little bit of fear of, is taking the initiative and trying to push something for a company to do. I think a lot of people should just look at things that they have in control, especially when it comes to this AI and automation thing. Look from where you have control, because in all aspects of our jobs, even if we don't have any direct reports and reporting into multiple people, there are still elements of our job that we can be in complete control of. And you should try, and if with regards to AI, if your office or your workplace is using any type of AI or automation, you should book a one-on-one meeting with your leadership to discuss your ideas. And after that meeting, you should send an email so that it's in writing, right, that you discussed that idea. And if they still don't jump on it, look at what you have control and impact over and see where you can subtly introduce those elements and then have something to report to them. But even then, even if they don't still rate it and you're still able to use that kind of technology or tools in your workplace, I always encourage people to keep their own KPIs. Do not let the KPIs be exclusively determined by your workplace or by your manager. You determine your KPIs, and that's what you use to tell your story. But folks, we thank you so much for coming through. Once again, if you are considering getting into tech, if you're curious about what your career in tech could look like, if you're curious about the benefits or some of the stories that may be similar to yours, and whether or not a career in tech is for you, I encourage you to book a free call with one of Skillhat's learning team members, and they'll give you personalized advice, a roadmap, and you can access that free call. Plus, if you decide to go with Skillhat, a discount from yours truly by hitting up the link right here on the screen, Skillhat.ca/Jobfather. Mo, I'm gonna give you the final word, man. What is it you would like the people to know about you, Skillhat, or the world, really?
Hey, man, the journey of 10,000 steps starts with the first step. So start today. Whatever goal you have, start today. Define the goals. Make it clear. Make clear what you want. There's no dream job. There's a dream lifestyle. Know the dream lifestyle that you want for yourself. Think about how you're going to get there, and let's work together on that. Book a call at Skillhat.ca/Jobfather. I'd love to work with you to help you achieve your goals.
Amazing, man. Thank you, everyone, for coming through. Stay tuned. We will be having, we'll be announcing formally when we have our Twitter space. And I want everyone that's watching to come on, ask questions, speak with us directly. But thank you, everyone, for joining. And until next time, peace and love.
All right. Thank you, Jermaine. Thanks for having me.